It's baffled scholars for 2 millennia. It is a puzzle made of multi-dimensional elements, an enigma with roots that reach back to the dawning of time, perhaps before. Daniel explained part of it. Ezekiel and Isaiah had glimpses into it. John saw it all for the time of the end. That time is now. Join Derek and Sharon Gilbert on a journey that spans the course of history, from Eden to Mount Hermon, from Hermon to Babel, from Babel to Rome, from Rome to the cross, and from there to us. Biblical prophecy is coming true before your eyes, and to understand it, you must discern the times both then and now. It's time to unravel the threads of this all-encompassing prophetic paradox. It's time to unravel Revelation.
Wormwood Part 2. Welcome to Unraveling Revelation from Skywatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert, and we are so very glad that you've been enjoying and watching these programs and sharing them with your friends. Do you know that we've been doing this for 1 year?
Wow.
August of last year.
Well, I guess based on the number of shows, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting up close to like 50 or 52 shows somewhere in there, so that's about right.
We've been at this for a year, so thank you for making this last year so enjoyable for us. And we've been at Sci Friday for 5 years. So if you enjoy Sci Friday, watch next week. Actually, it's this week when this airs.
Yes, later this week.
Because August 21 of last year, 5 years ago, 2015, August 21, 2015, was the first Sci Friday program.
And we managed to sneak that in.
We sneaked it in. Tom had no idea we were going to do that show.
Well, God bless him. He's been very, very supportive of what we've been doing.
Nice.
And to that end, we'd like to thank Tom for giving us the go-ahead to continue with these programs on the PTL Network. And PTL Network is now on the air in Sacramento, California, Denver, Colorado, throughout the state of Michigan, Minneapolis, Albuquerque, Salt Lake City. So if you're watching in one of those communities, thank you very much. We appreciate you watching. And you'll find Unraveling Revelation on Thursdays on PTL Network, twice on Thursday, 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. Central Time. And then, of course, Sci Friday will be on Fridays at 11:30 and 10:30. So we're
slowly
blessed.
taking over.
Yes. Every weekend
creeping
starts
our way
off.
through the world.
Waha.
Just like we're crawling our way through the scriptures. But you and I, that was our approach, has been our approach with Gilbert House.
Mm-hmm.
We do Gilbert House Fellowship. If you go to gilberthouse.org, you'll find all of the archives there. We've been doing that for, what, 7 years?
Not quite. We started that in the fall of 2014, so about 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
Whoa, long time.
Mm-hmm. And we've been through the Bible all the way at once, going through it in chronological order, the order in which the stories are.
Which they occurred.
Yeah, right. So that gives a really interesting take on things, especially when you get into the historical books like Samuel and Chronicles and Kings, and then you start going to the Psalms that were written by David, and you get a sense for what was in his mind and in his heart during those stories that we're reading about in Samuel, and so it's really, really fascinating.
It really helps. We're going to talk about Wormwood today a little bit more. When it sort of bleeds over into Sci Friday a little bit, because we're going to be discussing the Earth's reaction to a near-Earth object suddenly coming out and smacking or nearly smacking the Earth.
One of the things that we've noticed over the last couple of years is the frequency of reports of near-Earth objects buzzing the Earth.
It's almost every day.
Yeah, I think some of the more sensational red tops, the news sites in the UK, have found that they generate a lot of clicks, and so they will post stories about asteroids that are passing by, relatively close. On the universal scale, relatively close, can still be millions of miles away. But some of them do come inside the orbit of the moon. And now that's not often, but often enough that you can understand the initiative by NASA, by the European Space Agency, to scan the skies so that we've got some sort of early warning when these things come close enough to be a potential hazard, like asteroid Apophis, April 13th, 2029. It's supposed to swing back around again in 2036. But interestingly, as we discovered when we recorded the program for Tom's book, The Wormwood Prophecy, back in the back last year, and this was broadcast back in the spring.
Yeah.
We did 4 programs on this. We found that NASA had changed the website where they had the table of upcoming near passes
Yeah.
and skipped ahead to 2060, I think it was.
You can still find it if you go to the Wayback Machine.
Right, right. So it was just kind of curious that they took that out. Now, Apophis is supposed to come close enough to pass inside the orbits of some of our satellites, our artificial satellites. I mean, forget the moon. This one is coming close enough to Earth that it might smack into some of our satellites orbiting Earth. But they can only get within a certain degree of accuracy. As Tom wrote in the Wormwood prophecy, there are some who think that NASA knows more than what they've told us about its approach. So there may be more to asteroid Apophis than something that's going to be just a near pass, something to look up at the sky and say, boy, that's cool.
Well, the United States recently inaugurated the Space Force. We've been doing things in space for a long, long time, ever since we launched the first satellite. We put men in space, orbiting it, and then leaving the orbit of Earth and going to the moon. Okay, I'll assume we went to the moon. As a scientist, I just find it hard to believe that we would go for a few times and then
not go for like
ever go
50
back,
years. Yeah.
not doing anything. But let's say we did go to the moon. We'll just trust that. So we've been doing things in space for a long time. The fact is that we're also signatories to a space treaty, agreeing that we will not engage in warfare activities in space. And yet President Donald Trump has inaugurated the Space Force. It's sort of an echo of what Ron Reagan wanted to do with the Strategic Defense Initiative, the SDI, which was called Star Wars.
Right.
In fact, Trump has been accused of Star Wars Take Two. But let me read from a graphic that is part of the Space Force's press release. In the second box, the core competencies: space security, combat power projection, space mobility and logistics, information mobility, interesting, information mobility, space domain awareness. Now, disciplines that will be used in space: orbital warfare, orbital warfare, space electromagnetic warfare, space battle management, access and sustainment, military intelligence, that seems, cyber operations, that makes sense, engineering and acquisitions. A lot of this language, if I were another signatory country to this, I think it was in the 1970s or 80s that we signed this. It's relatively old. I'd be going, excuse me?
Yeah, how is this?
But what if this has nothing to do with another country and everything to do with something coming at us, which is where and why I brought this book to the desk. The Day the Earth Stands Still, that you wrote with Josh Peck.
It's become a topic that's made it to mainstream media since December of 2017, when that famous video of the so-called Tic Tac unidentified aerial vehicle, which is the new cool term, by the way. They're not UFOs anymore, they're UAVs.
It's not TikTok.
No.
Or is it Tic Tac? Does Tic Tac have a TikTok account?
Well, it might, but the question is, does the Tic Tac have toes?
Oh.
Anyway, that video from what is called...
I see what you did there. Pretty funny.
The USS Nimitz incident, which occurred back in 2004, if I remember correctly.
And they're still talking about that. Fox News drags that out every once in a while.
Tucker Carlson has been very interested in it. A former defense official by the name of Luis Elizondo is routinely brought out. He's a former defense intelligence agency officer who was heading up.
Is there such a thing as a former intelligence?
We would argue no. Now, here's the thing. We didn't get into this in the book because the release of that video in 2017 took place about 2 weeks after our book was published. But I wrote an article about the videos that have been at the center of this for Skywatch TV's magazine back in 2017, I think, or no, rather 2018, because it was December of 2017 when the video came out. That video has been available on the web. It was leaked to YouTube back in 2007. So it wasn't new. It was not a new revelation. It's only recently that the Pentagon has admitted that, yes, this was legitimate camera footage taken by the forward-looking infrared radar on the F-18s. It doesn't automatically follow, and this is the non sequitur, the leap of logic, that because the pilots of the F-18s, because the radar operators on the USS Princeton couldn't identify what it was moving at a speed faster than the SR-71 Blackbird, which is the fastest plane in our fleet, that it must be extraterrestrial. Well, no, it does not automatically follow. It might be a new type of drone that we have invented, and somehow the Navy pilots spotted something they shouldn't have.
Or it could be a drone someone else invented.
Right, exactly. Now, this was Mr. Elizondo and his colleagues are part of a for-profit corporation called To the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences. It's headed up by Tom DeLonge. He's the CEO. Tom DeLonge is the former frontman for a rock band called Blink, and I can't forget, Blink 142. I think that's what it is. Anyway, the point is that he is a Blink 182. He is a long time. Has a long interest in extraterrestrials, air quotes, and unidentified aerial vehicles. But every other member of the board of directors of To the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences, like Mr. Elizondo, have long connections to the military intelligence community, including Hal Puthoff, who was the head of the Stanford Research Institute's remote viewing project.
Yes.
Okay. Others who are similarly connected to the intelligence community. And the point that Josh and I made in interviews after that revelation, when we were talking about our book, is that what's happening now, and Tucker Carlson, whether he intends to or not, is propagating this, is allowing the intelligence community to guide the narrative about these videos that, again, have been available for people who really wanted to look for them on YouTube since 2007. Suddenly 2017 comes along 10 years later, and now suddenly it's a big deal in the New York Times and CNN and MSNBC and Fox News. Everybody's reporting on it.
Well, since then it's almost like a waveform,
right?
Because they seem to, we'll release more information. It's like the government is slowly trying to release information that convinces us of some sort of truth.
So bringing it back now to the book of Revelation and that third trumpet, which is the blazing star. Well, I'll read this again, Revelation 8, beginning at verse 10. And in fact, we can even go back to the second trumpet, because that also is relevant here. The second angel blew his trumpet, and something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea, and a third of the sea became blood.
Yes.
A third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. On its surface, looking at this from a 21st century scientific worldview, we would say, okay, that must refer to an asteroid. We talked about this a few weeks ago as to why we think this is actually referring to an angelic being rather than an asteroid. The third angel blew his trumpet, and a great star fell from heaven, star being another term referring to angels in the Bible, blazing like a torch, and it fell on a third of the rivers and on the springs of the water. The name of the star is Wormwood. A third of the waters became wormwood, and many people died from the water because it had been made bitter. Now, we didn't discuss last week that in Canaanite cosmology, the sea representing primordial chaos and the river called Prince Yam, Prince being a title in the supernatural realm. We see Michael referred to as the great prince.
Yes, Prince of Persia, Prince of Greece.
Right, yes. Prince Yam, the sea, chaos, and Judge Nahar being rivers, connected. So interestingly, this appears to be a reference to that in some form. And again, however, as we see the connection to Apophis and Tom's vision in the night of the connection between the Wormwood prophecy and the incoming asteroid that's supposed to pass by the Earth very narrowly on April 13th of 2029, we have to look at it in the context of what are we doing in space?
Boy,
And why are we
howdy.
doing it?
Well, we need to take a break.
We do. This time is going by much too quickly, but it's a fascinating topic, and we'll continue discussing.
Discussing?
Yes, the discussion or discussing when
Disgusting discussion.
Unraveling Revelation continues.
COVID-19 has changed everything. Because of the coronavirus, we can't bring the sold-out Defender Conference to Branson this year. So we decided if we can't bring the conference to Branson, we'll bring it to you instead. Skywatch TV's 2020 Defender Conference is going virtual. If you thought you were going to miss out because you couldn't travel to Branson this year, or because the conference sold out too quickly, now see and hear world-class speakers, cutting-edge presentations in the comfort of your own home. And to make it better, we're adding new speakers like Steve Quayle and New York Times best-selling author Joel Richardson. And don't miss what Tom Horn says will be his last conference presentation ever. Plus, we'll add all of the presentations from the 2019 Defender Conference, so you're getting 2 conferences for the price of 1. Sign up now, Skywatch TV's 2020 Defender Conference. Virtual, but bigger than ever. It goes live August 27th, 2020. For information and registration, log on to defenderconference.com. That's defenderconference.com. Here are the upcoming conferences and events featuring the team from Skywatch TV. For a full list and complete information, log on to skywatchtv.com/schedule or download the free Skywatch TV mobile app for iOS, Android, and Amazon Kindle Fire tablets.
Welcome back to Unraveling Revelation from Skywatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert, and we pray that you can join us in 2021 in Israel. Trust us when we say that it will change your life. It's why we wanted to go back right away. In fact, we're going to try to go in November of this year to do a little scouting for next year. But you can go to lipkintours.com, look at the 2021 tours, or you can go to skywatchinisrael.com, and that will take you to the very page.
Exactly. Get a look at the itinerary, idea the costs, and we're putting out a series of sample videos, and you'll find those linked at our website, unravelingrevelation.tv.
You and I just turned in a manuscript to Tom for a book that really, it's like the distillation of all the research we've been doing for the last 10 years. It's called Giants, Gods, and Dragons. And the gods part of it is fallen angels. That's what God calls them.
Yes.
Our capital G God calls them gods. I say you are gods.
Yes.
And you will die like men. Psalm 82.
Yeah, courtroom scene. And essentially, it analyzes the spiritual opponents, adversaries, in this long supernatural war.
And it gets into eschatology
Right.
because we start in Genesis just the way we started in Genesis for Unraveling Revelation. In many ways, this book is a companion to this program.
Yes, you're right. And I don't want to pat ourselves on the back, but we've, I think, come to some conclusions that I've not seen or read or heard before from other prophecy teachers.
If there's something really, really valuable in this book,
Well,
I
yeah.
always say this, credit to the Lord, because we know that He does sometimes give us great ideas. The rest of the time, we have stinky ideas. So
And that's on
ignore
us.
those. That's
Right.
on us. But yeah, I think it's obvious to us, now that we've been studying this for a long time, that in Exodus, He was judging the fallen realm. In the book of Revelation, He's judging the fallen realm. It's just that the humans happen to be in the way.
I'm thinking now about something, and I probably should have thought about this before coming in, but it only now just occurred to me.
For those of you wondering about the little light bulb that just came on over Derek's head,
Yeah.
is it an LED or an
Well, no, I
incandescent?
thought you were actually referring, because sometimes this LED back here sometimes does.
No, sometimes you just go bing.
In the Exodus, the waters of Marah were bitter. Moses made Israel set out from the Red Sea. This was after the waters were parted.
Right.
Okay, the waters were parted.
They were turned to wormwood.
The great The great
bitter
mountain.
waters, you
Well,
mean?
none, yeah. The great mountain in the second trumpet judgment hits the sea. Moses and the Israelites crossed the Red Sea when the sea was parted.
Mhm.
Then from there, they set out from the Red Sea. They go into the wilderness, and they go 3 days into the wilderness, find no water. They come to Marah and could not drink the water of Marah because it was bitter. Sea.
No,
parted.
I get it. I'm
God-
totally getting it. And we're not the first ones that have seen this. Tom Horn has said many times, and he writes it in this book,
Yeah.
that he believes that there are parallels between Exodus and Revelation.
Yeah. Well, I'm just slow on the uptake. So again, I'm not trying.
Light bulb.
This is not something new for sure, because I know that there are, in fact, friends of ours who have been writing about this for a while. But I'm coming late to the party here. But okay, light bulb just went on, and you're seeing me think things through out loud here on camera. But yeah, it just struck me again. We're seeing this in the same order.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Interesting.
But remember that the things that are happening in the book of Revelation, yes, the humans are affected. The Lord is trying to put pressure upon humanity so that we will realize who the real creator is,
Mm-hmm.
that we'll understand the truth, because the enemy is trying to delude us with lies, lying signs, and wonders.
Right.
In fact, it's possible that the enemy, through humans or not, will take credit for the things that are happening on the earth.
Well-
Or they may even say, we deflected an asteroid and it broke apart, and so the pieces are coming down into various parts of the earth. But you can thank us for not being dead.
Yeah. So, okay, yeah, a third of the waters have been poisoned, but it would have been much worse had we not blocked it.
Uh-huh.
Or as we discussed last week, it may be the kind of thing that's blamed on climate change, which we know the World Economic Forum is already
Mhm.
lining up as the next big scarecrow to frighten us into accepting a global government
Yeah.
once we get past COVID-19.
But I highly recommend these two books, The Day the Earth Stands Still and The Wormwood Prophecy.
And
Day
in
the
fact,
Earth is an older one, but
But in
boy.
fact, we get into some of the topics that we cover in Giants, Gods, and Dragons, because Josh and I explored the concept of chaos
Yes.
and the fact that there are those in the UFO movement who are actively believe that they're summoning something, or that something is incoming from the vicinity of the star Sirius.
Mm-hmm.
The connection to end times prophecy and chaos
Mm-hmm.
and the UFO phenomenon is documented.
There are connections between the Sirius, if you want to talk the religion of worshiping whatever is in that area,
Mhm.
but also a connection to the Temple of Set.
Right.
There are some really odd stuff that they cover
And some
in
very
this.
dark
so,
stuff, yeah.
very dark stuff that takes you in directions you don't want to go. But after this, the next angel sounds. The fourth angel blew his trumpet, and a third of the sun was struck, and a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of their light might be darkened, and a third of the day might be kept from shining, and likewise a third of the night. I'm going to mention, first of all,
Mhm.
that the dragon's tail sweeps a third of the stars. This idea of the third of the stars being affected, that's elsewhere.
Yes, that's in Revelation 12.
Yes.
The seven-headed dragon that's identified as Satan
Mhm.
sweeps down a third of the stars. And again, star referring to angels in Scripture here.
By the way, the constellation Draco takes up about a third of the sky.
Oh, wow.
He's big.
Yeah. What's also really interesting is that back in the days of Abraham, what we think of as the North Star was not Polaris because of the process, or what they call the phenomenon of precession. Right. The Earth wobbles a little bit on its axis. And
Yeah,
so the
so it's
North
like a
Star
top.
moves a little bit. And back in the days of Abraham, the North Star would have been Alpha Draconis.
Mm-hmm. I know.
So, but yeah, interesting. The third of or the dimming rather of the stars, the sun, and the moon is
This happened
somewhat,
in the 6th century, in 536 AD. It's thought that now that they're saying it was probably volcanoes, but I think there's more evidence that it may have been a comet or a comet breaking up. that hit in a number of locations. And that kicked up a lot of dust and may have triggered volcanoes. So it could be both. But that would have blocked out a lot of light. When Mount St. Helens went off, it affected the weather systems for quite a while, and it also affected the light that came in for a little bit. So it wouldn't be surprising if you've got Wormwood crashing into the ocean that you would have a lot of debris in the air, and it might actually turn some of the air toxic in some areas.
Well, Wormwood again crashing into the rivers, a third of the rivers, but the burning mountain previous to that.
Oh, that's right, the burning mountains. So yes, you would have a lot of the earth affected by, so boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, but in the spirit realm here, and unfortunately we only have a couple of minutes left. In the spirit realm, what would be the meaning of the stars and the sun and the moon?
Well, the angels themselves are called stars.
Exactly right.
A number of places. The sun and the moon are also entities.
We see this as an echo of the ninth plague of Egypt, where they had those days of darkness. But we also see in Joel 3, the sun and the moon are darkened and the stars withdraw their shining. Amos 8, on that day, declares the Lord God.
Yes.
The day of the Lord, that's Judgment Day. I will make the sun go down at noon and darken the earth in broad daylight. Really interesting.
Well,
in Isaiah, in fact, in Isaiah 26, no, not Isaiah 26. You go ahead and I'll find what I'm.
Well, I was just going to say that if you look at the worship of the sun, because Rome was well known for worshiping the sun, also worshipped Saturn, Kronos, by the way, but also the sun as in Apollo. He's connected to the sun. So we've got a God and entity represented by the sun, but we've also got that entity's father. Yes, the moon is the sun's father. Shamash is the son of Sin. Sin is the god of the moon. The old entity behind the moon was not a female. It was a male. This was Sin. And you get into your Bad Moon Rising that the moon is essentially Islam. Yeah.
One of the components of a coalition, but certainly the oldest or one of the oldest adversaries of God. I mean, Sin is spelled S-I with a circumflex N.
Yes.
We look at it and say wilderness of sin, but I think what we're dealing with is wilderness of sin.
But that gets back to Exodus.
Exodus. So we're dealing with entities. There's a prophecy in Isaiah, and of course I've forgotten where the reference is.
You can put it down below.
I'll put it down below because it talks about the sun and the moon being confounded and shut up in a pit, and then after many days being punished. It's not talking about literally punishing the sun and the moon. He's talking about
these are entities.
Shamash and Sin. Yes, these entities that have manifested as these small g gods. That's what we're dealing with here, and that's what we're seeing, we think, in Revelation. Thank you for watching. Boy, this is
1 year of this.
Great stuff. This is Unraveling Revelation from Skywatch TV.